From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN Noon News.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us on your MTN Statewide News this Friday. I'm Jeanelle Slade. Well, as of noon, former Vice President Joe Biden has taken the lead in Pennsylvania as the number of outstanding ballots has dwindled. Now, this puts the Democrat within striking distance of the 270 electoral votes that he needs to win the White House. Tensions are high in some battleground states where the race for president is razor thin. Deborah Alfarone reports.
Police in Philadelphia say they arrested two armed men in a Hummer truck who were plotting to attack the city's vote counting center. Tensions there have been high as supporters of both President Trump and former Vice President Biden gathered outside, separated by barricades.
We will not accept what's going on. Absolutely not.
Every vote should be counted. Absolutely.
President Trump has repeatedly called for a stop in ballot counting, claiming major problems with the system, but offered no direct evidence of fraud. Many were back out again this morning at Detroit's Vote Processing Center.
You're not going to let them steal this.
In Phoenix last night, right-wing conspiracy theorists fired up protesters outside of an elections office. An even larger demonstration is planned for today.
We can support a fair election, who wins, right? But the things that are coming up now are highly concerning.
In Las Vegas, pro-Trump protesters prayed at a ballot counting location.
4 more years.
And in Miami's Little Havana, President Trump supporters flooded sidewalks in a parking lot in front of a popular Cuban restaurant. This group has been protesting President Trump and playing music here in Black Lives Matter Plaza in the shadow of the White House for days. Election officials in several states say they are worried about the safety of their staffs. Some workers are being protected by security when they arrive and leave work. Deborah Alfarone, CBS News, Washington.
In Portland, about 60 people marched near a Portland City Commissioner's home. Deputies declared an unlawful assembly and arrested one person. Well, it's time now to check in on the weather scene with meteorologist Ed McIntosh. And Ed, it was beautiful across the state yesterday.
We were setting record highs in a good portion of Montana and Wyoming, even into South Dakota yesterday, Jeanelle. Take a look and see where some of those highs started to develop. Missoula, Bozeman, also Dillon, all the way over towards Helena. In fact, check out Helena at 76, not even close to the old record back in 2001. Plus Billings and areas into the eastern plains of Montana and in northern Wyoming started breaking records, or at least tying records, yesterday afternoon. And along with northeast Montana for Glasgow, also areas in Wyoming and Rapid City, South Dakota, a record high temperature yesterday. But that's all behind us. We're looking at big changes we'll tell you about in a few minutes.
All right, thanks, Ed. Well, planning is in full swing for the upcoming 2021 Montana legislature. There are still many unanswered questions regarding COVID-19 protocols, including how much can be done in person and how much remotely. Well, MTN's Jay Cohn sat down with freshly re-elected Billings lawmakers Kathy Kelker and Bill Mercer to hear their thoughts on the upcoming session.
There's some consideration is doing a hybrid with perhaps doing a Zoom type thing with the committees. And then when it's time to vote, we have the voting in a bigger space so there could be distance.
My plan's to be there in person. I think it would be difficult to function as a legislator remotely because there's just an awful lot of interaction that's going to happen in the building between the executive branch and the legislative branch with fellow legislators. I think it would be a real challenge to try to do that. So, it's my expectation that I will be there, and it's my expectation that a large contingent of the legislature will be there.
Kelker will be serving her fourth term in the House, while Mercer will begin his second term. Lawmakers will meet November 17th and 18th to select leadership for the 2021 session and have a choice to attend in person or remotely. The 2021 session convenes January 4th. Well, education has certainly looked a lot different this year in Montana. After winning her second term as the state superintendent, MTN News caught up with ELSIE ARNTZEN to learn what she plans on changing going into the second half of the year. She says the state is now working on figuring out what standardized testing will look like this year, and she says a lot of laws and regulations need to be adjusted as well.
I've talked to many school leaders across the state about these tests, right? And they're federally mandated assessments. I've asked the Department of Education on trying to unwrap some of the regulations. Law would have to change.
ARNTZEN says she believes learning is the most important thing right now during these changing times and would like to focus more on that than statewide testing. Well, prosecutors and law enforcement in Butte are studying up on the newly passed recreational marijuana law, which will change the way they handle drug-related cases. The Butte Silver Bow County Attorney's Office is meeting with police and health and zoning officials to learn the guidelines once legalized recreational marijuana goes into effect. While possession charges are expected to drop, law enforcement could see increased issues in other areas, such as driving under the influence. Officials will consult other states like Colorado that have already legalized recreational marijuana. And it appears it takes a good mix of Montana to create the best. The Helena Exchange Club announces Mark Mitchell as Helena's Firefighter of the Year. Mitchell has been a firefighter for 8 years. He spent the first 4 years in Butte before returning to his hometown of Helena. And before that, Mitchell studied fire and rescue in Missoula. Now, his father served as a firefighter in Helena for more than 30 years, and Mitchell says he is happy to follow in his footsteps. Well, another 9 deaths to report across Montana today due to COVID-19 related illness. MTN now reports 452 total deaths. Another 900 positive cases are also reported today, pushing active cases over 12,000. Well, the Department of Corrections announced this morning that 2 of the recently reported deaths were Montana prison inmates. One inmate from Montana State Prison in Deer Lodge died on October 24th, and the other from Crossroads Correctional Center in Shelby died on October 31st. Now, Starbucks continues to adjust to its new pandemic business model. The company will close 100 stores in the U.S. within the next year due to changing customer habits. Starbucks says with more people working from home, it plans to set up more stores in suburban areas. The company plans to build 400 new stores next year in the U.S., but those will focus more on drive-thrus and carryouts. Well, Butte's annual Winter Festival is set to carry on this January with extra COVID-19 safety protocols in place. The 6th annual Snowflinga Winter Festival is set for January 21st through the 24th and will feature many winter activities such as skating, cross-country skiing, hockey, and the polar plunge. Now, that event raises money for Special Olympics. Still ahead on your noon news, we'll kick it over to Fort Benton with a look inside a football team that reigns on top. Now it's playoff time. But first, Ed's in next with your statewide weather forecast. Don't go away.